Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Famvestor podcast. I am your host, Sunmarie Burns.
And I'm your co-host, Sunny Burns.
And we just got through recording this episode, only to find out we recorded it all on mute. So here we go for round number 2.
Always better the second time. So this is
practice makes perfect.
Right. Here we go. So I am really excited because we just hit a major milestone, which is something to be very excited about. I'm just laughing because we said this already. But in my IRA, we both have IRAs, individual retirement accounts. In my Roth IRA, I just hit $100,000, which is pretty spectacular. It's pretty amazing. I only opened up my Roth IRA 9 years ago when I was 21 years old. I'm now 30, but in that 9 years' time, it has grown from zero to $100,000.
Woohoo!
Which is awesome. Mm-hmm. To have that huge milestone in that short amount of time, and it will just continue to grow. By the time I'm 60, I've calculated that it should be around $1 million, even if I don't put any more money in. I've been putting like $5,000 to $6,000 a year into it. You can only put up to $6,000 currently into a Roth IRA. So that's what I've been doing. We've been maxing out our IRAs and trying to get it up there. So and total contributions over those 9 years was $49,000 of my own money I put in. But, through compound interest, it's grown every single year, and it's grown now to $100,000, which is amazing. My money's pretty much doubled in these last 9 years, which is really cool. And like I said, in 30 years, it should, even if I don't put another penny in, it should grow to $1 million, which is crazy. And I'm going to keep contributing, but I'm just saying, even if I don't put a penny in over the next 30 years, that $100,000 should become $1 million. So, isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, we're going to go into what the Roth IRA is, why you should open it, why it's so much better than a savings account, and why it's going to set you up for financial success in the future. And I know we've touched on it here and there throughout the podcast, but we're really digging in deep today. It's going to be an episode you're not going to want to miss, and I hope every single one of you, if you didn't already have one, opens one up today. I'm going to show you. It's going to take 3 minutes to open one up. It's going to be an amazing thing. It's going to change your lives. Let's get to this show.
You're listening to the Famvestor podcast. If you're looking to raise your family with intention, gain financial independence, and live a life of true freedom, you're in the right place. Join us as we explore together how to create thriving families, because strong families are the cornerstone for a world at peace.
All right, so now we're going to dig into the why. Why a Roth IRA account, and how is it different from any other kind of account? Savings account, brokerage account, IRA account.
Yeah, so, an IRA is really just a way to invest and hold your money. You could be holding, maybe you have $1,000 and you just stick it in your mattress and be like, okay, I'm going to save it in my mattress. It's not going to grow anything. The $1,000 you put in there today is going to be worth $1,000 10 years from now if you pull it out then. Maybe you go to your local savings bank. You go to your Bank of America or your PNC Bank. You deposit $1,000 there. At the end of the year, sure, they're going to give you some rate of return. It's usually like 0.03%. So your $1,000 will then be worth, $1,003 after the year is over. So
it's always a little bit disheartening to see how slowly it grows. And you're like, I didn't touch that because I wanted it to grow, and then it doesn't.
Yeah, a savings account, you're really not going to get much. There are like online high-yield savings accounts, and those are better. You'll get like 2%, so your $1,000 will grow $20 that year, should you put it in that account, which is much better. Not bad. I would definitely recommend that over putting it in your mattress. But then there's brokerage accounts, where you're actually getting into the stock market and really yielding the power of those high rates of return. Stock market on average goes up 7 to 8% every year. That's average. Some years it's down, some years it's up, but on average it's going up 7 to 8% a year. So that's why I really recommend going with an IRA. An IRA is kind of like a brokerage account, but it's tax advantage, so it's only taxed one way, and that's because it's meant to be used for retirement. There's ways you can access it earlier. I'm going to talk about that, but I always recommend the IRA over a standard brokerage account, especially if you're not looking like for a quick money-making scheme where you just want this money to double and then you take it out or something like that. If you're looking long-term, and I'm not saying, you're looking till you're 60 years old and retiring to use this money. I'm talking, 3-5 years, 2 years even, and you just want it to grow. Use a Roth IRA. I love this option, and I'm going to go into why. So I don't want to bore you too much with details, but a brokerage account, you're using after-tax money. Any money that you ever touch is after-tax money, right? So a brokerage account, you're using after-tax money, so you've been taxed on this money. It grows. Whenever you take out the growth, you're going to be taxed on it again. Let's say you put $1,000 into Amazon stock because you love Amazon, and that's after-tax money, and then it grows 20% that year, so it grows to $1,200. That $200 of growth, if you pull it out, is going to be taxed at whatever your tax bracket is in. But let's say you had a Roth IRA. You put $1,000 into Amazon, it grows 20%. That $200 is tax-free. Whatever growth you get is going to be tax-free. It's all your money to keep. The government's not going to tax you on any of it. So let's say you left that $1,000 for 60 years and it grows to, $100,000. That $100,000, that $99,000 of growth from that $1,000 seed money, that's all tax-free. You can just keep it. And that's why I love the Roth IRA. So there's two types of IRAs, the traditional and Roth. I always just recommend the Roth, especially for a young person. There's definitely pros and cons, but I feel like for the majority, just go with the Roth. Traditional, you're taxed not at the beginning, like the Roth, you're taxed at the end. So you're only taxed one way with IRAs, right? Brokerage, you're taxed in and out. But IRAs, you're taxed one way. In the traditional, you're taxed when you take the money out. So you're using pre-tax money, money that's not counted against your federal taxes for that year. So, you get to channel it away from that tax bracket. But you pull it, whenever you pull out the earnings, you're going to get taxed on that money. So let's say, that $1,000 Amazon stock over 30 years or whatever grew to $100,000. That $99,000 of growth is going to be taxed at whatever tax bracket you are when you're pulling that out. So maybe when you're 60 years old, maybe you are retired, you don't have this income coming in, but whatever you're taking out, you're going to be taxed at whatever rate it is. So I just love the idea that the Roth can grow and grow and grow, and whatever it grows to, I get to keep 100% of that. None of that's going to get taxed. And there's other advantages of Roth IRAs, and I'm going to go into that, and those are huge. You know what? I'm just going to talk about it right now. So the biggest benefit is whatever you put into a Roth IRA, you can pull out that money at any time.
And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't know.
They don't.
And so that kind of scares them about starting a Roth IRA.
Right. They're like, okay, yeah, I guess I have a little extra money, but what happens if, my car breaks and I got to buy a brand new $15,000 car the next day or whatever. And they're like, I need access to money, so I can't start an IRA, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And they think I have to lock this money away till I'm 60 years old and ready to retire, but that's not the case. Whatever money you put into a Roth IRA, you can pull out at any time, no questions asked. Maybe you do have to wait like a 2-day transfer to your bank account from the broker, from the investment firm, but you can definitely do it. I've done it multiple times. And yeah, so you can almost treat it as like an emergency savings account is what I like to tell people. A lot of financial advisors, don't recommend it because, for instance, let's say, the market is volatile. There's risk there. But overall, it's a positive trend, 7 to 8% a year. But let's say, it just happened, you put in $1,000 and then you buy Amazon, and then Amazon has this big news scare where one of their drones that they were testing starts shooting people. Anyway, whatever. And then their stock crashes from $1,000 to only being worth $500. And let's say your car did break and you needed that $1,000. Now you only have $500. And in that emergency, it would be a terrible situation, right? So that's why they recommend not doing that. But for me, being a responsible person, having some cash reserves, not tremendous like maybe a regular emergency fund, I recommend this Roth IRA route because your money is just going to grow for you year after year after year. For me, I was thinking I was going to keep it in reserve for my eventual real estate dream of buying a real estate property. And I was like, I'm just going to keep funding this Roth IRA and, it's going to grow and grow. And I won't touch that growth, because you'll get penalized if you touch the growth. So, you bought that Amazon stock for $1,000, that $200 of growth. If you touch that, you'll be penalized with a Roth IRA still. But that $1,000, you can pull that $1,000 anytime you want to.
And I think that's the point where a lot of people get confused is the difference between the contributions you put in, which you can have the freedom to remove without penalty, versus the growth that happens off that contribution, which you are not allowed to pull out without significant penalty.
Right. And then so that's why I like Roth better than traditional, because traditional, you're using this pre-tax money, so it's kind of, you're not really supposed to touch it. It's supposed to be for retirement.
You're not supposed to touch any of it.
Right. You're not you can take it out, but you'll be penalized 10%. So Roth, you get away from all of that that baggage or whatever. It's really so much more flexible, and that's why I love it.
All right, so let's segue into the next question on most of our minds, and that is, all right, I know I want to open one. Now tell me how to do it.
Okay, so I have a great blog post for you. It's called faninvestor.com/Roth.
I love blog posts.
Blog posts are great. They're awesome. Roth is ROTH. So if you go there, it'll show you step by step how to open a Roth IRA. It's really just 7 steps. And I really if you want to know more about why it's so important, how you should open it, just read through that post. I talk about my own investment story, and you can read through it in 5 minutes. It's no big deal.
Very simple, step by step.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to show you, my recommendation right now is go through fidelity.com to open up your Roth IRA. And if you're following along on YouTube, all you got to do is go to open an account. Open a Roth IRA is what we want. It's not going to be a rollover unless you're rolling over from another like Vanguard account. I used to recommend Vanguard, and I still do. I think Vanguard is great. I just think Fidelity is just a tiny bit better. I just started using them, and I think their user interface is a little better. And they have seems like all the same advantages that Vanguard had, with like low fees, and target your retirement accounts, and great index funds with low fees. They seem to have it all too. So I'm starting to recommend people towards Fidelity, even though Sunry still has a Vanguard account, and I'm not going to move her away from it because I think it's great. But Fidelity, I think for new users, is just a little bit better. Also because there's no minimum investment amount to start a Roth IRA. With Vanguard, I think you need $1,000 to start. Fidelity, you need nothing. I think you need $10. $10 to start an account. So there's no reason not to start today. So it asks, are you a Fidelity customer? I say no. You just put in your name. I'm just going to put blah blah. Let's see if it takes it. Hopefully it does. I'm going to say blah@gmail.com. But really, it's going to take you 3 minutes. And then from there, you hit submit, and then you just put in your social security number, date of birth, has some citizenship questions, your phone number, your address, and then you click next there, and then all it's going to do is ask you for your banking information. So you can, I think, log in online to, if you have PNC Bank, you just put in your login credentials, or you can just put your checking routing number and your account number, and that way you can fund that $10 to your account and get it started. And what I really recommend for everyone is to try to hit that max, that $6,000 a year maximum contribution you can put in. I really recommend it. After 9 years, I have $100,000 in that account. If you can make that goal, 10-year commitment to try to max out that account, it'll really just set you up for your future. You'll be financially set. So I really recommend setting that automatic contribution. So if you want to max it out, on a monthly basis, $6,000 a year, you divide that by 12, that's $500 a month that you're going to be trying to put in. And I really recommend make that automatic. There's ways to fund your account automatically. And so just make it an automatic contribution. And maybe you can't start with $500 a month, but do what you can start out with. Even if it's just $10 a month, setting that automatic feature is the key to enabling that success. Just set it and forget it. Really, you will thank yourself so much for doing that.
Right. I mean, the more you can contribute, the better, but don't let that hold you back from not starting it. Just get anything going. Anything is better than nothing. All right, so great information so far. Here we are. We've set up a new account. We're a new user, and now we've got to figure out how we're going to invest. So how do you choose which stocks you want to invest in, and how do you go about doing that?
Right. So, you could choose thousands, probably tens of thousands of companies to invest in, all traded on the public stock exchange. I've invested in Netflix, in Amazon, in Boeing, in you name it, Apple, whatever. You can Google, whatever you want to invest in, you can invest in. But really the thought process these days from a lot of investors is to just pick low cost index funds and invest in that. And that way you don't have to think about it. You don't need to be, this top trader. We're not buying and selling we're not day trading. We're just buying and buying consistently over time. And that way you don't need to be a brainiac. And they say this is the best way to invest. Just buy on a regular basis, whether the market's going down or up. You're buying $500 every single month, no matter what. That $500 month is going in, whether the stock market crashed or whether it's at its peak. You're just putting that in and putting that in. And then over time, you're going to see that 7 to 8% gain. And let's say you're still confused. I don't know what to buy. That's why they have these great index funds. The one I recommend the most is like the S&P 500, which is the top. It's an index fund of the top 500 companies in the U.S. And there, you have a big pool to choose from. But also, if you want to think even less about it, what I recommend is like a target year retirement account. So for instance, there's this Fidelity Freedom 2055 fund. So this is a target year retirement fund. So let's say, so this is like when you plan to retire. So if, for me, being 30 years old now, in 2055, I'd be like 65. So this would be a great fund for me because it'll do everything for me. So you just plug in your target year retirement account. Maybe you're 40 years old now and you want to retire in 15 years. So you choose the 2035 fund. So there's different funds. I think it goes every 5 years, and you could just choose this. There's no minimum. You can put $10 into this account and put $10 every single month towards this Fidelity Freedom 2055 fund, and you never have to think about it. It's going to take care of everything for you. It'll know that, okay, you're planning to retire in 2055. This is the exact stock balance you want, whatever. Yeah, it'll just do it all for you and adjust it for you as you age.
It's kind of its own automated system, so you don't have to manually go in and pick stock by stock and think, oh, is this a good investment or a bad investment? It's just this automated way of investing.
Right. And then if you want to get more creative, then I would go for one of these, and these are all, once you start like putting more money in the account, you'll have access to more different accounts, because some accounts require like a $3,000 minimum investment. But these, all that I'm going to name here, are zero, just $10 minimum investment. And you could, if you have interest in real estate, you could do a real estate index fund. If you have interest in energy, you can do an energy index fund. If you have interest in like gold or silver or precious metals, you could do a precious metals index fund. But what I recommend is, stick to either that Freedom Fund, that Target Your Retirement Fund, or stick to something like a 500 index fund, the 500 top companies in America. So that's for Vanguard, that's FXAIX is the stock ticker for that. So you would just buy, if you put $10, you would just buy $10 worth of FXAIX and get started just like that. And that's how simple it can be.
So this has been a great discussion about what a Roth IRA is, how to start one, and how to start investing once you have already opened up an account. So a lot of information here. I think the key takeaway is don't wait, don't keep making excuses for yourself. You really don't need much to start. And, even if it's a smaller amount, the sooner you start and the more consistent you are in monthly contributions, the future you will thank yourself.
Yes, definitely. And, just kept this episode short so you can spend 5 more minutes to log on to fidelity.com and just open up a Roth IRA. It's really going to take you 5 minutes to do, and just set that automatic contribution. Make it $10 if that's all you can really afford. $10 a month, just set it, and then when you can, up that amount until you get to that $500 mark. And yeah, it'll be amazing for yourself.
Right. So take this time, make sure you go and get yourself a Roth IRA.
Yeah.
And with that, we want to thank you for listening, and we hope you'll tune in next time.
Godspeed, everyone.